Hello, welcome to the 5 o'clock news here on Channel 5. I'm your host, Mason Dunn, and
I'm your co-host, Tyler Bradshaw.
tonight we will be talking about the intellectual, cultural, and social movements from the 1830s to the 1860s. We'll first start off with Tyler Bradshaw talking about transcendentalism. So, go ahead and take that away.
Thank you, Mason. Now to transcendentalism. Transcendentalism was a movement mainly led by Ralph Waldo Emerson, but others also had a role in it. Some of them that had a role in it were Margaret Fuller, Amos Alcott, Frederick Hedge, and Theodore Parker. The movement was an American literary, political, and philosophical movement that occurred in the early 19th century. It was an idealistic, philosophical, and social movement in New England that started around 1836 because of rationalism. There were many things that influenced the movement, like Romanticism, Platonism, and Kantian philosophy. It was a protest against the state of intellectualism and spirituality, saying that the powers of individuals was more important. It taught that divinity pervades all of humanity, and most of the members all held progressive views on feminism and communitarian lifestyles. And now we're here with Ralph Waldo Emerson, and we will talk some about his transcendentalism movement.
So, the movement started the day before I actually published this book, Nature. So, one of my books I published about my thoughts and, intellectually and stuff. And so, the day before I released this book, I gathered up a whole bunch of my friends, Henry Hedge, George Putnam, just a whole bunch of my friends, and who thought like-minded like me intellectually. And we decided to get together every now and then and have meetings and discuss our thoughts about transcendentalism, and that kind of started the movement. Yeah.
It's amazing. And you mentioned your essay, Nature. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it was my essay, or book really, it was just an essay. It was published by James Monroe and Company in 1836. And this was the first time that I truly established my thoughts of transcendentalism, which, in generic terms, is it's really a non-traditional way of looking at nature, in which the divine suffuses nature and suggests that reality can be understood by studying nature. And yeah, so it was just new thinking that I wrote down in my book Nature, which really changed everything and started the whole transcendentalism movement.
It's very interesting, very interesting.
Yeah? Okay. So thank you, Tyler. That was a great interview you had about transcendentalism. And now we'll move on to the Second Great Awakening. So at the time of the 19th century, America was still a church-going nation, and most of them felt that traditional religious faith to be the foundation of moral character. But this started to change during at the time of the French Revolution, when they started hearing the news of the cruelties and stuff that that they were doing in the French Revolution because of their religion. But everything changed in 1795 when Timothy Dwight became the president of Yale College, described as a hotbed of infidelity. Determined to counter the secular trend in American thinking, Dwight sponsored a series of religious revivals that fired the collective soul of the Yale student body and spread across New England, igniting a religious movement called the Second Great Awakening. The sermons preached from the pulpits, and this great revival did not attempt, like the old-time Puritans, to pressure a captive congregation with dire predictions of a vengeful God, omniscient power, and arbitrary judgment. Instead, they spoke of a benevolent Father, whose most passionate desire was the salvation of every one of his children, down to the most lost sinner. And because of this, the Baptist and Methodist population skyrocketed due to this new thinking. So we have an interview, about to have one with a local priest here, a Baptist priest, and yeah. So we're here with an interview with a local priest. So just talk to us a little bit about the assemblies, the religious assemblies, and what would go down there.
At a religious assembly, a person could be saved by faith alone during a conversion experience, but the only absolute requisite prerequisite to salvation, however, was an acceptance of Christ's sacrifice as an anointment for one's sins.
So this differed from the old Puritan ways where God was this evil person who would like to burn you in hell.
Yes, very much. We don't think you're going to hell if you've sinned.
Wow. So it's all about redemption and God forgiving you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Keep on talking.
So, camp meetings were generally held in the fall after harvest before the rigors of winter. For the participants who often traveled considerable distances, religious revivals probably combined the attractions of a retreat, a camp out, and a much-earned vacation.
Okay, so talk about the religion in the South and how some of the blacks felt about this. See what they thought.
So in the South, black slaves and freedmen, and also the women, could attend segregated companion revivals. The emotional, spiritual, and social opportunities of such a gathering can scarcely be appreciated in the modern ages for its intensity.
Wow, so these were very intense gatherings where they all get together and just have some fun, sing and dance.
Mm-hmm.
So, talk about the woman in this whole entire movement.
So women made up the majority of converts during the awakening, and they played a crucial role in its development and its focus. Church members and religious activity gave women peer support and a place for meaningful activity outside of the home. It also provided many ways for women with communal ideas and identities to share their experiences.
Wow, so overall this seems like a very positive thing.
We tried.
Thank you for being on the show today.
Anytime. Thank you, Mason, for that amazing interview. Next, we'll talk about women's movements and Seneca Falls. Seneca Falls was a convention held in 1848. It was held at the Wesleyan Chapel in Seneca Falls, New York, and it was the first ever women's rights movement held in the United States, and it gathered almost 200 women in attendance. The convention was organized by Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Stanton, two abolitionists who met at the 1840s World Anti-Slavery Convention in London. As women, Mott and Stanton were barred from the convention floor, and this is what caused them to want the equal rights for women, and so they could be viewed the same as men in the eyes of everybody else. On the first day of the convention, only invited women were allowed to attend. On the second day, though, they allowed men and any other women to, and there were also 40 men that showed up, including a famous African-American abolitionist, Frederick Douglass. During the convention, after a lengthy debate in which Douglass sided with Stanton in arguing the importance of female enfranchisement, the resolution was passed for proclaiming a woman's rights to vote. The Seneca Falls Convention was subjected to public ridicule, and some backers of the women's right withdrew their support. However, the resolution marked the beginning of women's suffrage in America. The Seneca Falls Convention was followed 2 weeks later by an even larger meeting in Rochester, New York. Therefore, national women's rights conventions were held annually, providing an important focus on the growing women's suffrage movement. After years of struggle, the 19th Amendment was adopted in 1920, granting American women the constitutionally protected right to vote.
We need women's rights.
Excuse me, can I get an interview real quick?
Yes, sir.
So, why are you out here protesting for women's rights?
The women, they need the right to vote. Now.
Do you guys think you're gaining any ground with this protesting?
Of course, we're out here in Skinner Falls and we're grinding, trying to get some votes.
Did you attend the Seneca Falls convention?
Of course I did. And I really thought we had a good rally and we have a good chance of getting women's rights to vote.
Okay, thank you for the interview.
No problem. I'll keep on marching.
That was a great interview with a woman's activist. And next we'll talk about the nativist movement. Nativism is the political position of demanding a favored status for established inhabitants of a nation as compared to the newly come immigrants. Nativism gained its name from the Native American parties of the 1840s and 50s, but does not mean the native indigenous American Indians, but rather the people that have descended from the original 13 colonies. It impacted politics in the mid-19th century because of the large inflow of immigrants after 1845, and cultures were different from the American culture. Nativists objected primarily to the Irish Roman Catholics because of their loyalty to the Pope, and also because of their supposed rejection of republicanism as an American ideal. Nativist movements included the Know Nothing or American Party of 1850s, the Immigration Restriction League of the 1890s, and the anti-Asian movements in the West, resulting in the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 and the Gentleman's Agreement of 1907, by which Japan's government stopped immigration to the U.S., and the labor forces were strong supporters of this Chinese exclusion and limits on immigration because of fears that if the Chinese came in, that it would lower the wages for them and also make it a lot harder to organize unions throughout their work. Okay, I am now here with Cheng Li from Southern China, and we're going to talk about the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882.
Hello, it's me, Cheng Li, and I was trying to move to America, but because of the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, they wouldn't let me. And so the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 made it so that Chinese workers could not immigrate into America, which it hurt me in my heart because I tried to come to America to work, but they won't let me. So I had to go back to China and be a rice farmer. So it hurts, you know.
Do you think it affected anybody else except you? Like, do you think every other Chinese man felt the same?
All the nativist movements, it hurts everyone. It's not a very good thing to the foreigners, and hopefully the American government will solve this problem and let the Chinese men back into America.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Tyler. That was a great interview with the Chinese man. And now we're going to talk about the temperance movement. So during the early 1800s, Americans consumed 2 to 3 more times alcohol per capita than today. And so alcohol abuse was very common, and it was believed to be the base of nearly every social problem, including crime, poverty, labor abstinence, and domestic violence, some serious problems. So advocates of the temperance had been active since the publication of Dr. Benjamin Rush's An Inquiry into the Effects of Spirituous Liquors upon the Human Mind and Body, and which he published in 1784. But the campaign against alcohol during the Reform era was imbued with an unprecedented moralistic fervor. So the earliest temperance organizations seem to have been those founded at Saratoga, New York in 1808, and in Massachusetts in 1813. And this temperance movement, it attracted the largest number of female reformers and served to introduce them into other crusades, such as women's rights and abolitionism. Yeah. In 1826, the assault upon Demon Rum became a national movement with a confederation of local societies called the American Temperance Union. With a decade, the ATU boasted a membership of 1.5 million people, and an additional 500,000 Americans had taken the Cold Water Pledge and vowed to forsake all alcohol. And eventually in 1840, a group of reformed alcoholics led by John B. Goff, known as the Poet of the DTs, organized the Washington Temperance Society and began touring the country, giving impassioned speeches to audience of drowned drunkards, and they sang different temperance songs. And all this led up to Maine becoming the first state to prohibit the sale of alcohol in 1851. The leader of the Prohibition campaign was Neil Doe, a Quaker businessman who served as the mayor of Portland. A dozen other states passed similar Maine laws, although in most cases they were not rigorously enforced or were soon repealed. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're ending the news. We have talked about everything from the intellectual, cultural, and social movements from the 1830s to 1860s. I've been your host, Mason Nutter, joined along with
Tyler Bradshaw, co-host.
Thank you for joining us tonight, and we will see you next time.